welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Alexander Harmsen. He is the founder of PortfolioPilot.com. He's a tech entrepreneur, and we'll learn from him how AI is revolutionizing investing, eliminating human bias, and reshaping portfolio management. Will also learn how AI-driven insights can make you make smarter financial decisions and stay ahead in the market. Welcome to the show, Alexander.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Alexander. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how AI and the future of investing. We'll learn all about this and so many things I've said, but there is so much to learn more about you, Alexander. And I'm sure that's why if you can share a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to, especially about the Mars helicopter thing. Also, I watched it when it took its first flight. People would be certainly excited to know about that.
Yes, I like to think I've done many things in my life, but definitely one of the crowning achievements, I worked very early on at NASA at the Jet Propulsion Lab in LA, and worked on computer vision systems to be able to help a little drone navigate around the Martian surface. They don't have GPS, and so, the original goal was, together with one of the rovers, to be able to land on the Martian surface and then use a little camera to be able to monitor what's happening on the ground, and basically use different rocks and ground formations to be able to locate itself, fly, try to understand how far it is above the surface, navigate its way back to the ground station, to the rover, relay information. And then I worked there 2013, 2014, something like that. And then finally, 8 years later, I think 2021, it flew on the Martian surface. And it was pretty amazing to see that. My background was engineering, physics, and economics. I couldn't quite decide, what I wanted to study, but I really liked the idea of complex systems modeling. Very early, AI wasn't called AI, sort of very early forms of machine learning and expert systems, and thinking about computational physics. A lot of it was just like trying to explain the world around you in some sort of quantitative way. And then 2015, I started a company called Iris Automation. Basically, I built a computer vision system for drones to be able to navigate. Basically be able to navigate airspace the way pilots do, avoid mid-air collisions. It was basically an autonomous vehicle company for self-flying robots. Everything from agricultural surveys to mining exploration, even package delivery. We actually did a project with Zomato in India, which was fantastic. We flew to Bhutan and flew through the Himalayas doing vaccine and blood delivery. Very exciting stuff. Eventually in 2021, sold the company and to a big partner of ours, with basically a leverage buyout with a private equity firm. And we had raised $30 million, grew the team to 50 people, expanded to 3 different offices. We had hundreds of clients around the world. We got regulatory approval to be able to fly, tens or hundreds of kilometers away from an operator, in 9 different countries around the world. And then basically after selling the company, I was lost for a little while and was trying to figure out what to do next. My wife and I had a kid and then another kid. We have 2 beautiful boys now, 2 toddlers. And we bought a house, a nice house in the hills in the Bay Area around San Francisco. And my wife runs a biotech company. They've basically built a digital twin of the human body using AI for drug discovery and drug development to predict, clinical trial success before it even goes into the very first before it goes into the very first mouse or rat or monkey and sort of preclinical trials. Very cool stuff. I started talking to financial advisors and wealth managers and private bankers. And the thing is that, I felt like I wasn't really talking to experts. I felt like I was talking more to salespeople that were trying to give me access to their fund rather than real, someone I would trust my money with. And it also felt a little bit crazy to say I can do all of this myself. I like to think of myself as a pretty smart guy, but I don't want to be a day trader. There must be secrets and optimization opportunities that I don't know about. And so I started, a little side project. I took out my coding gloves for the first time in 5-6 years, and this side project turned into a full-fledged company. Now we have about $30 billion of assets on the platform, 30,000 users. We've gotten regulatory approvals to actually have this AI system that we've built, portfoliopilot.com, operate like a human financial advisor in the sense that it has a fiduciary responsibility and it can actually give real financial advice on taxes, on investing, on estate planning, on scenario modeling, tracking all your assets. It gives you opinionated insights. It's very proactive. And so, basically that's where we're at right now. I get to go on podcasts once in a while and talk a lot about why human advisors aren't quite as good as you might think they are. Talk about emergent trends in AI. We're a 10-person team, but I think our 10-person team is probably operating at the same efficiency as our 25-person team with Iris Automation, which is incredible. I mean, the leverage that we can get from AI. All right, I know that was maybe a long answer to your question of
No.
Here, but hopefully sufficient.
Not long at all. Means I'm listening to it, and I'm just wondering how you have achieved so much. In such a early age of yours. It's a lot of things to do, lot of things to achieve. So from NASA to AI in finance, and so many things. But I want to understand, Alexander. You could have, you had a good amount of money after those, selling of your company and everything. You could have just had a very easy life. Getting into this whole thing of investing and finance, it's a lot of things to do. I want to understand, and you talked about it, but I want to understand a bit more about your inspiration. Why do you want to get into this whole humdrum of things where there are many big players already?
I think we sold the company in 2020. We had contract negotiation. We had negotiations in 2021. Sort of around May, everything was done, and you can say in June I retired. And then by the end of July, I was bored out of my mind, and I was taking courses and reading books and calling up investors and experts and talking to people on Wall Street and people in the hedge fund world. And I created a whole bunch of different projects, trying to think about maybe I do something else in drones or air taxis or self-driving cars, robotics. Maybe this is the next wave. I don't know, maybe I just can't relax. Maybe there's something wrong with me. I like to think that it's not about the money. It is more about having some real impact. It bothers me to no end that human financial advisors are taking 1% or 2%, sometimes even more fees every year without any sort of not tied to performance in any way. It feels crazy that there's conflicts of interest, and sometimes they're pushing products that they, shouldn't be pushing, certain mutual funds or kickbacks, or I don't know, there's an inherent bias that comes along with human selection. The other problem is that it's never truly personalized. right? I actually think that, people talk a lot about, all the wonders of AI and, the world of information at your fingertips and, blah, blah, blah. There's obviously many, many benefits from AI. I think the number one benefit from AI is this power of personalization, where, it's very difficult, I think, to convey any sort of real information in a format that isn't personalized truly to you. I mean, I must say, even this podcast, of course, I think it will be an excellent podcast episode and, show and masterclass. But wouldn't it be better if you and I were sitting down one-on-one with every single one of your listeners and diving into their very specific story and trying to connect, what we're talking about today to their narrative? I mean, if you can do that level of personalization, if you can do that with someone's personal finances, whether you buy a certain stock or buy a certain fund is very dependent on how much cash you have on hand, what your risk profile is, what you're already holding in the rest of your portfolio, whether you're planning to buy a house or not, next month. Are you married or not? Do you have kids? What does your retirement funds look like? How much support are you getting from the government and social security benefits? Are you already retired or not? Are you focused on income investing or total returns? I mean, there's so many different factors that go into that. Our system comes up with recommendations. We told someone recently to sell Tesla. 40% of their entire net worth was Tesla. And the system told him, sell a bit of your Tesla position. And he said, no, this is a bad investment advice. I don't want this investment advice. It's not good. They hit the ignore button in the product. And we followed up with them and tried to figure out, and this is a long time ago, right? I mean, I can't actually discuss any real financial advice. I'll get in a lot of trouble for that. A long time ago, say, if, this guy said, my uncle works at Tesla. I mean, I used to work at Tesla myself. And so I have all these shares and they've appreciated and they've 10x'd and, all this. I have to pay all these taxes there. So why does it matter if your uncle works there? Well, he works on this line and stuff. And, I'm not supposed to, but I get some inside information from him. And my point is that it's so personal whether someone decides to buy or sell something. It's very difficult to just listen to the news and have someone say, you should buy this stock. All my million viewers, buy this, sell that. And, this amount of personalization you just can't get, I think, in any other way. And I think it's sort of just right time, right place. I think the other answer to your question about why dive into this, why not just retire and ride into the sunset, is that it's fun. I don't know, what else would I be doing? I am in a new job, every 6 months. There's a huge difference between, the AI tools that are coming out now, the challenges that we have. We just signed a really big partnership, and that's going to go live in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited about that. I've never done something like that before. This sort of scale, this sort of distribution. It's very different running a consumer company compared to a B2B company. And so my last company, every single person that gave us money, I met. I knew a year ahead of time in our sales pipeline. At a certain point, I would come in as the CEO and help close the sale or at least shake the person's hand. These are big, 6-figure contracts that we're signing. With Portfolio Pilot, thousands of paying customers, and the majority of them I've never met or interacted with in my life, right? We've put something out into the world and it convinces people completely on their own to, go along and at a certain point, whip out their credit card. Hopefully they pay for the premium service and, don't just stick with our free tier. But there's a psychology there that is absolutely fascinating. right? I think I've changed the way I talk. I have changed the way I write things, right? Like the app is not so complicated, right? There's a lot under the surface, but the app itself on the top is fairly simple text. And I think almost on a monthly basis, I go into the app and I think, wow, this part is so confusing in the app. Why did we write it like that? If we write it in this much simpler way now, it gets to the real story. It's more likely that people actually click on the button they're supposed to click on. And then a month later, I have the same reaction. What was I thinking a month ago? And the more conversations you have with users, the more you learn about the user psychology. And it's a mix of product development and design and marketing. Absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating indeed, your story, Alexander. So I want to understand, is the future all about, future of investing all about financial advisors? Where is the human element? Tell us a bit more about portfolio pilot. How exactly does it work? And secondly, you see, other companies have also a lot of this sort of, not maybe the way you are doing it, but lot more automated, lot more things, which is much more, part of the online part. So where is the difference? How does it differentiate from a lot of other such platforms? Even some are there in India also. So I want to understand that.
Yeah, I think two things are true for sure. There's 1,000 other investing apps in the world, right? We are not the first investing app. Uh, and it's, in one sense, it's very crowded, right? It's very difficult to distinguish yourself and make a name and, communicate what really is the difference. I think the other thing is that we're not the first company in the world to try to, get rid of human financial advisors. There are, robo advisors 10 years ago, 15 years ago said, it's crazy what these human financial advisors are charging. We can do it cheaper. We can do it completely automatically, at scale with a slick interface, completely on the web. And the human financial advisory business is bigger than ever. It's something like $240 billion worldwide. It increases every single year. Are humans done? I don't know. It will take a while to completely get rid of this industry, right? But, and I'm completely biased when I say this, but I think finally we are at a turning point now. I think the main issue that you had with sort of this like phase one robo advisors is that it was mostly generic, lowest common denominator advice. And so it's a little bit of exposure to, it's a bunch of ETFs, some equities, and some bonds. And they do a little bit of reshuffling and rebalancing for you. It's very convenient, right? Just upload your money and, send your money, and they do it for you. Can be quite sticky, but it feels like it's been a race to the bottom in fee compression, and it doesn't really feel that differentiated. You see a lot of consolidation there. And so the robo-advisors, the traditional robo-advisors, it's not really a good model, and in many ways feels like it's been a failed venture opportunity. And then there's 1,001 trading apps. And so I think there's probably lots of stuff there. AI signal generators and ways to be able to do deep analysis on a stock, or technical analysis, or stock screeners and dividend trackers. And there's Bloomberg terminal for the retail investor, and DIY news sources and information in how politicians are trading stocks. And there's lots and lots of stuff for trading hobbyists, trading amateurs, trading experts to do that. I think the gap in the market, and what I actually think that 80% of people want, is they want to be somewhat involved, but they really would like some app, some AI that plugs into their life, that, you take a little bit of time, you set up once, you answer some questions. It knows your finances. It knows everything about you. Real estate and stock options and, retirement accounts and cash accounts and credit cards and investing accounts and crypto and, every single cent to your name, all the gold, that's stashed under your bed, whatever it is. It's all in one platform. And then it proactively gives you advice. And the main idea here is that we don't manage your money for you. So we are an advisor, but not a portfolio manager. And so the onboarding friction gets reduced to almost zero. Within 5 minutes, you could take a screenshot of your brokerage account or your retirement account, and we can be giving you financial advice 5 minutes later. And so I think there's a significant reduction in friction. I think it's for people that aren't so sophisticated. You don't need to be a trader. In fact, if you're checking your portfolio multiple times a day and making trades multiple times a day, it's probably not for you. We like people that are, they have families or real jobs, they're doing something else in their life. And, they think about finances, sort of this side thing that's very important, but I don't want to spend all my time on it. And then I also think it's very important to have an ignore button for people. And then have the system learn from people as they ignore, as they accept the recommendations. The system gets smarter, kind of like everything else we have in life, whether it's, the food delivery apps or things we watch on, streaming services or Facebook. Everything adapts to us, and we expect these services to be personalized. Why not financial advice? The other thing is that, there's a lot of people that just use our service as a second opinion. They have a financial advisor, but let me just double check. Maybe I'm missing something, or at least they can have an informed opinion, or, worst case scenario, the financial advisor actually knows what they're talking about and you wasted a couple minutes to, get a second opinion. It allows you to be a little bit more confident, making sure that your money is actually safe and, invested the right way. And so it's this notion of personalized and comprehensive, right? It's not just about investing, but it's also taxes, retirement planning, estate planning. If you have kids, we'll remind you once in a while to think about guardianship for your kids, or think about a last will and testament, or a healthcare directive and living will, or at a certain level of net worth, you might think about setting up a trust, life insurance. I mean, it's all these kinds of things that are baked into the product. And then human and financial advice and the bias that comes with that. We talk a lot about removing human bias from the process. Honestly, even if we don't completely kill and consume this $240 billion human financial advisory market, if we make them even a little bit more honest, if we force them to lower their fees to compete, that will be a massive impact and a net positive for anyone on planet Earth that has money to their name.
Absolutely. So how do you remove this, as you call human financial bias from through your system?
Yeah, I mean, we will never truly eliminate conflicts of interest or bias, of course. But if you have a completely automated system like we do, right, we are giving financial advice without any humans in the loop. And so if you do that, if you set up the system like that, then you can systematically remove bias, whenever it comes up. And so, if you're a human financial advisor, if you're anybody giving advice, then naturally your own biases are going to come into play, right? It may be mathematically the smart thing to, sell to trim a certain portion of your, whatever stock that just went through the roof. But even your financial advisor is going to have a little voice and say, I'm going to really look like a genius if I tell him to hold just one more week. Right? And if it goes up another week, this guy is thinking about selling everything. If I just convince him to hold on for one more week, that he's going to tell all his friends. I get to post it on Facebook. I mean, he is going to love me. There's so much human psychology that comes into play. And it's just like gambling, right? There's just this uncontrollable piece of all of us that, it's very difficult to fight that. Even if you've trained, even if you've, been investing for decades, it's very difficult to fight that. And the thing is that it creeps into everything, right? Should you buy life insurance or not? If you get any sort of commission from selling the life insurance, no matter what your intentions are, there's going to be some conflict of interest that is going to influence the advice you give. If you really know that, you should contact all 50 of your clients, with this latest market updates, it might affect their decision to buy something. If you send out the email today, then you're going to get, 4 or 5 of those 50 people are going to call you and say, hey, I want to take advantage of this. But you have your daughter's game, in an hour or two. Let's send it tomorrow morning. And our system, that doesn't care, right? It's going to send it at the appropriate time every single time, no matter what. And so it's all these little things that where bias gets introduced, where there's this human factor that, we can help eliminate. And then I think if you want some sort of human judgment as part of that decision-making process, it probably shouldn't be on the advisor end. It should be on your end as the client. And so, one of the things that people seem to really like about Portfolio Pilot is that we are never certain about anything that we tell. We will give you a menu of different options and say, like, we've done 95% of the work for you. We've thought about all these different scenarios, and here's our justification for what you should do today. Now you get to make the final decision. Do you press the red button or not? Do you trade? Do you sell? Do you invest in this? Do you move this over? Do you take advantage of this tax opportunity? And I think it helps shift the control to the end user. And in the worst case scenario where our system says to do something crazy, at least then still there's this control piece from the end user where they can say, I just don't buy it. I just can't wrap my head around that. People can say ignore, they can submit feedback. And, with tens of thousands of users, if there's something off about the system, we hear about it immediately, right? Our customer support channel is going, day and night, and it's wonderful. It's almost like just this incredible QA testing and like an amount of iterative feedback about what's important to people. And we didn't deal with this edge case, or this seems problematic, or here's this data error. You can't get that, even with 10 of the smartest investors in a room, you'll never be able to handle all, these kinds of scale of edge cases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what about data privacy, my privacy, data security with the inclusion of this AI into means all my data will go to this all these top shots of the industry, either it's OpenAI or even Anthropic or DeepSeek or anywhere, even China will get it. How should I look at it as a common investor?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, something we take very seriously. We're registered as an investment advisor with the SEC in the US. And because of that, we have, 300, 400 page compliance manual. Just 25 pages are about cybersecurity and data privacy. And so there's a whole compliance system there. What we have set up, and on the security side, we consider bank level security. We 256-bit encryption for everything at rest, in transit. We have 2-factor authentication that you can turn on within your system. There are certain access controls, within the company itself. if we use so when we say AI, I think it's useful to point out that we use lots of different types of AI, right? And I think these days when you talk about AI, mostly where people think about ChatGPT and DeepSeek and Claude, these large language models, and we use some large language models, yes. Some of them are open source, some of them are some of the names that we've just talked about. Uh, we also use like multivariate machine learning models as part of our forecasting. There's a recommender engine that uses machine learning and AI at its core. That's homegrown. There's these dynamic factor models that we've built that are sort of like these deep regressive models similar to what central banks around the world use for thinking about inflation and GDP and interest rate modeling, running different scenarios. We use different models, computer vision and OCR models to be able to do, to pull in screenshots of people's statements and accounts. So it's not just like one big wrapper. It's not like we're just taking your portfolio and just uploading a chat GPT and, hey, what do you think about this portfolio? In fact, ChatGPT and OpenAI and like a lot of those other LLM models explicitly ban you from using models like this to generate financial advice. They do not want to be regulated by the SEC. And, there's a lot of issues with this sort of thing. They will very often say, here's general themes and things you should investigate, but for actual financial advice, you should consult a, financial advisor. And so the short answer is like we anonymize it. Before we would send it externally to anybody, we will anonymize the information. And so like OpenAI, if we ever do something with OpenAI, it's typically we generate the advice internally, and then we say like, here's a list of 29 different reasons why we think this is a good investment opportunity for the user. Condense this into 4 sentences, so that it's actually readable by the end user. We'll do things like that. So sometimes it's summarizations from the LLMs. We'll also use it for the smart search. And so one of the things that I actually think is really cool that we've done is we have this stock screener. And a lot of people have built stock screeners, right? We're not the first company to build stock screeners. But our stock screener, instead of having a bunch of filters and drop downs, is just this natural language search. So you can say, find me a bunch of companies that, benefit from novel, AI models, or, benefit from DeepSeek, dropping the cost of model development and inference. And it will come up with a bunch of answers. Then we can automatically add it to your portfolio in a draft mode, run some comparisons, create some benchmarks, and help you understand, is this a good investment for you, yes or no? And so, as you can see in that way, it's just really like integrated hybrid experience. It's not just, a text box, where you can ask. Actually, I think people really like the idea that they have this proactive, I don't know if I would call it an agent, but this proactive system that is actually going out into the world, collecting data, and then saying, you should do this.
Absolutely, Alexander. One thing, complaint there is a lot about, especially in several parts of the world, including India, is that earlier, even from the stock market perspective, people who had access to much more systems, faster systems, much more data directly, even a few second difference can make a huge lot of difference in doing your trades. And there have been issues about corruption in this, allegations and all that stuff still going on in several of these cases. In terms of now the type of things that you are providing, do you think you are eliminating a lot of the general population from that benefit, and it is not going to be a level playing field with the coming of all these systems, either in terms of actual trading or even in terms of all this AI financial advisors? How do you see this whole thing panning out? Is the general trader also, general investor also out of the market in that sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think there's multiple. I think the simplest way that I think about that is this question of alpha, right? Is there really some difference between what the market is currently saying the price is and what the price should be? And is there some edge that I can take advantage of? Some opportunity that I can take advantage of? Like you said, high frequency traders, some of the biggest hedge funds in the world. I mean, they have some of the smartest, machine learning people. They're taking advantage of, some of these algorithms as well. If we're talking about milliseconds, seconds, minutes, hours of, I don't think retail investors stand a chance. Frankly, I don't think they've stood a chance for the last 10 years. And so I think that's part of it. Then is there alpha in the long term? Maybe. There's, if you start thinking about medium to long-term investing, a lot of professional investors, a lot of hedge funds don't do any sort of investing on the macro front. You have big firms like Bridgewater, right, that are obviously focused on systematic macro, thinking about when the next crash will be. Are there dislocations in bond markets and foreign exchange, and thinking about commodity prices and what's happening to inflation and not. And so maybe and those are very deep markets, right? Even Bridgewater with $150 billion is not going to saturate these kinds of opportunities about like whether the US market will go into a recession or not, right? We're talking about trillions of dollars of capital being affected by that. And so they're not going to saturate this opportunity. So maybe there's still alpha and macro, at the sort of scale that we're working on, where we're thinking about, portfolio management and thinking about, macro neutral portfolios, things like this. But maybe there's alpha in our models, these forecasting models and the macro. And we actually won a forecasting competition last year, this worldwide forecasting competition, which was pretty incredible. And so there's maybe something there. Maybe there's some alpha. I like to think that the biggest benefit we give to people doesn't come from the alpha. If you go to our website, you're not going to see, Portfolio Pilot outperforms the market by X%, buy our subscription so that you can beat the market. There are as many gains that you can make by doing smarter rebalancing of your portfolio, by having a better diversification than you otherwise would, by not leaving idle cash in a checking account, and making sure that it's at least getting invested in some short duration bonds, treasury funds, money market funds. You should think about tax loss harvesting opportunities, on a monthly basis instead of every year. Are you focused on liquidity in the right way? If you have to sell out of everything and pay a ton in taxes to afford your house, 2 years from now, maybe you could have saved a lot more money by doing that smarter, thinking about these time horizons differently. There's so many examples of this kind of optimization that has nothing to do with alpha and, an edge. And so in that sense, I think that, there will always be opportunities for individuals. And the chance that you don't have a bunch of optimization opportunities in your life right now, is pretty low. And so we can surface that for billions of people.
Absolutely. And looks like this is what's going to be the future. Whether you like AI or not, but AI certainly likes you in its own way and is trying to peep into your life and integrating itself to it, isn't it?
That part is inevitable. Yes. I think anyone that's fighting that is going to have a tough, next couple of years.
Absolutely. There's much to learn about all these things about AI, the future, and the future of investing, finance, and everything else. And I'm sure a lot of people all across the world would like to learn more about you, from you, also about your platform, portfoliopilot.com. What's the best way for them to do so, Alexander?
Obviously, I would love for people to sign up at portfoliopilot.com. There's a free tier. People use it for analysis of their portfolio and an assessment and back testing and running their portfolio through a bunch of different crises, even just using it as a portfolio tracker. And then if you want to follow us, we put out videos and news and updates and funny investing memes. Follow us on Twitter at Portfolio Pilot.
Absolutely. So people in India also can use it, Alexander?
Sure. Yes.
About the Indian stocks that they are looking at.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So most of our clientele is in the U.S. and Canada. So it definitely works best in the U.S. and Canada. And we're currently only registered as an investment advisor in the U.S. But we have users all over the world.
Wonderful. Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.